This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
This department commanded the respect and admiration of the entire world.
Since you cherish Medicaid, will you agree to oppose cuts?
I've worked within the Medicaid environment quite extensively.
That's not the question.
I was scared outside in the really dark.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast. I'm Family Life News anchor Sarah Harnish. President Trump is delivering a rare address to the U.S. Department of Justice at this hour.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. We begin a proud new chapter in the chronicles of American justice. This really is something. We're turning the page on corruption, weaponization, and surrender to violent criminals, and we're restoring fair, equal, and impartial justice under the constitutional rule of law.
The president said he began the process by picking leaders like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, who will clean up the mess.
This department commanded the respect and admiration of the entire world. And with Pam and Kash and all of the people I introduced and far more, with you leading the way, it'll soon be the most admired and most respected of all.
At a factory in Michigan today, Vice President J.D. Vance issued a clear message to corporate America.
Our goal is to make it easier and more affordable to make things again in the United States of America. If you invest in America, in American jobs, in American workers, and in American businesses, you're going to be rewarded. We're going to cut your taxes. We're going to slash regulations, and we're going to reduce the cost of energy to build things right here in this country that all of us love.
Vance says America has a $1 trillion trade deficit with other countries, and Donald Trump is flipping that on its head.
But if you try to undercut us and build outside of our borders, the President Trump's administration has got nothing for you. If you want to be rewarded, build in America. If you want to be penalized, build outside of America. It's as simple as that.
In the Capitol building, Democrats are huddled deciding whether they will or won't sign off on a stopgap budget to buy time before a government shutdown that happens at midnight tonight. Senator Chuck Schumer rallying the crew.
While the CR bill is very bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse.
At least 8 Democrats will have to vote yes. CBS reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns.
The president is actually congratulating Chuck Schumer on opening the door to get this legislation passed.
No deal yet, though. Outside the U.S. Department of Education headquarters today, hundreds of protesters chanted against layoffs.
Education is under attack.
This protester said she's against Trump's plan to shut the department down.
People want to see something different. They want a different type of government, a government that works for us, not a government that is, out to disrupt our entire system and structure and block opportunity for generations to come.
President Trump says it's necessary to be able to hand federal cash back to the states to run their own schools. Canada has a new prime minister. After taking the oath of office this morning, Mark Carney said Canada will, quote, never be part of the U.S. There was a Senate confirmation hearing today for Dr. Oz to head up Medicare and Medicaid.
I commit to doing whatever I can, working tirelessly to ensure that CMS provides Americans with access to superb care.
It got heated with Oregon Democratic Senator Ron Wyden.
Since you cherish Medicaid, will you agree to oppose cuts?
I cherish Medicaid, and I've worked within the Medicaid environment quite extensively.
That's not the question, Doctor. The question is, will you oppose cuts to this program you say you cherish? Time's short.
Oz says he's not opposed to sensible cuts that preserve Medicaid. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is in Quebec for the G7 summit and told reporters the U.S. is continuing to look for more people who should have never been allowed in our country on student visas.
Every time we have a chance to revoke them, we will, because it's not in the national interest of the United States for them to be here.
Hamas says it's agreed to release an American it holds in Gaza, along with the bodies of 4 others. CBS reporter Linda Gradstein.
Hamas did not specify when the release of Israeli soldier Idan Alexander, who was 19 when he was taken hostage, and the bodies of 4 other dual citizens who died in captivity would occur.
Now to Alaska, where Jesse Holmes has won the longest ever Iditarod trail sled race. It was live streamed on Iditarod.com. Holmes was the first to the finish line in Nome after completing 1,100 miles across the wilderness. He finished in 10 days, 14 hours and 55 minutes. Saving a language. Professor Jesse Roberts and his students are using AI to preserve the endangered Cherokee language.
In the Eastern Band, there are roughly 140 first language speakers left.
Roberts is entering recordings of fluent speakers of the Cherokee language into AI tools, but Tools is having a hard time processing the language because it isn't like any other language on the earth. Roberts is being held by Benjamin Fry, an assistant professor of Cherokee language at the University of North Carolina, Asheville.
The pie in the sky dream is that we'll have fully articulate, fluent Cherokee speaker that lives in your computer, can work on your pronunciation with you.
And just 2 more hours until NASA and SpaceX try to launch a capsule to rescue 2 astronauts that have been stuck up there at the International Space Station for months. CBS space consultant Bill Harwood.
They have to show Crew 10, these freshly arriving crew members, the ins and outs of space station operation. They're going to spend 2 days doing that before they get in their own Crew Dragon and return to Earth.
Liftoff is set for 7 p.m. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, it is Friday, and that means we sit down with the Capital Connection crew in Albany and Harrisburg for an inside peek of the stories that matter most right in your backyard. Michael Gear and Jason McGuire on deck next after weather with Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast for the night tonight. On balance, fair skies, a little patchy cloud cover here and there, especially central and eastern Pennsylvania, but flat and overall, low temps 40s tomorrow. It'll be relatively warm, sometimes breezy day, clouds, some sun. A couple of showers around in the afternoon, mainly western New York and western Pennsylvania. High temps 60. The widespread showers and rumbles Saturday night and Sunday. High temperatures on Sunday in the 60s.
60 sounds good. Thank you, Kevin. Each Friday, our own Bob Price hosts a roundtable with Michael Gear of PA Family and Jason McGuire with New York Families to take a closer look at legislation in both state capitals through a biblical lens. Let's listen in.
And welcome back to another edition of Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. This week, flying solo is Michael Gear at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Jason McGuire, New York Families, busy getting ready for next week's big Legislative Day event in Albany. So we're going to give him a pass this week, Michael, but there is much to discuss in your state. Lots of education and election issues in the news. I want to begin with Planned Parenthood's plans to infiltrate school board elections this year. This is the year those school boards are seated in the Commonwealth. What most concerns you about the strategy here at Planned Parenthood?
Well, Bob, there's an old joke that asks this question: why do people rob banks? And the answer is because that's where the money is. And if folks wonder why Planned Parenthood is supporting candidates at school board races across Pennsylvania, it's because that's where the children are. Planned Parenthood not only commits more abortions in Pennsylvania and nationally than anyone else, it's also the prime promoter of explicit and perverse sex education curriculum and ideology, including transgenderism, in schools, online, and in social media. So in the view of Planned Parenthood, gaining friends and allies on local school boards means that they will have influence with the gatekeepers of what happens in the classroom and in school assemblies, counseling sessions, or when they establish these so-called school-based health clinics where they promote their abortion and their sex ed curriculum. They want to, again, get their tentacles into our public schools because that's where the children are.
Yeah. Talking education, the big news this week with the Trump administration really taking a sledgehammer to the Department of Education, reducing the number of workers there. The goal is to abolish it altogether. I wonder what you think of that and how that would maybe change the dynamics of education in Pennsylvania. Would it much at all?
Well, I was around when Jimmy Carter proposed and made a deal with the teachers union to establish the Federal Department of Education. His successor, Ronald Reagan, campaigned and then said he was going to eliminate the Department of Education. And here we are, decades and decades later with a ballooning budget at the federal level for the Department of Education, and yet we've seen educational achievement just continue to decline. So the money should be going in the states, not sent down to Washington, number one. Number two, the decisions should be made locally and at the state level. And so I think the shutting down the Department of Education will be a positive thing for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for New York, and for states across the country.
Yeah, well, something's got to be done. The test scores are showing that no country in the world spends more per student than this country, and we are right at the bottom when it comes to academic achievement. So we got to do something, that's for sure.
In 1979, America was number one in the world in math education and achievement among students, and that was around the time the Department of Education got underway, and now we're way down on that list, and so the department has not improved things, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know you're a big fan of voter ID. The House Democrats say they are open to expanding that so long as Republicans show an interest in other sorts of election reforms. Is this a deal or a trade-off that Republicans should entertain, Michael?
Well, I think risky would be a good way to approach this. The fact is we've seen agreements come from our state legislature with Republicans and Democrats for election reform. Notable was the agreement back in 2019 to allow for mail-in voting in exchange for eliminating the option with a single checkbox of straight party voting. And as people who look back on it now would say that didn't work out so well. So we had voter ID actually did pass and was signed into law by Governor Corbett, but the court struck it down. And so I would be fearful at this stage in striking some deal that included other parts of a package, that then the not so good parts would be upheld, but then voter ID would again be struck down. So who knows? It's still something we need to have happen in Pennsylvania, but I don't know whether a deal is the way to get it.
All right. Well, that'll have to be the last word this week. Lots of issues discussed today, but I'm sure a few of our listeners would like to know more about what they heard on the program, or maybe they just want to know what is the Pennsylvania Family Institute anyway. Why do you exist, Michael? You have existed for 36 years there, doing a great work in Harrisburg. If folks want to learn more, where can they find you online?
We are at pafamily.org.
You can subscribe, listen to, and share Capital Connection and all of Family Life's original podcasts at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or at familylife.org. Time next for tonight's market report, brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Stocks rallied to cap a losing week on Wall Street. At the final bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 674 points to 41,488. The S&P 500 rose 117 points to 56,38, and the Nasdaq climbed 451 points to 17,754. Faithward Advisors is a Christian financial planning firm online at faithwardadvisors.com.
The late Larry Burkett often asked, do you trust God, or do you just say you trust God? Hi, I'm Rob West with your Faith and Finance Minute. The Bible tells us over and over, the Lord will provide. Look back over your life and see if that isn't true. God kept his promise, providing not always your wants, but always your needs. And not just financially, he's also given you family, friends, and your church. God knows you need those things, and he provides them. There's a secret to casting aside fear of the future and finding contentment. Jesus tells us how to do it in Matthew 6. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So trust him fully, because when you put God first, he'll take care of the rest. Get biblical answers to your financial questions in the Faith Fi community. Download Faith Fi, Faith and Finance in your app store, or visit faithfi.com.
Coming up on the 5 o'clock report, it is the little boy who could. How a 3-year-old saved the life of his grandmother. Coming up next, after weather with Kevin Williams.
Here is your Family Life regional weather forecast. Well, we've certainly ended the work week on a lovely note, and we'll start the weekend on a nice note weather-wise as well. But things will be changing as a potent cold front is due to bring us showers and thunderstorms for the second half of the weekend. In the meantime, for the night tonight, on balance, fair skies, a little patchy cloud cover here and there, especially central and eastern Pennsylvania, but pleasant overall, low temps 40s tomorrow. It'll be relatively warm, sometimes breezy today. Clouds, some sun. A couple of showers around in the afternoon, mainly western New York and western Pennsylvania. High temps 60s. But widespread showers and rumbles Saturday night and Sunday. High temperatures on Sunday in the 60s.
Thank you, Kevin. Finally, at 5, we end in Colorado. A 3-year-old boy is being hailed a hero after he was with his grandma alone when she had a serious fall.
She bonked her head.
I said, you know what? You're going to have to go out to the car and get my phone.
I was scared outside in the really dark.
Young Bridger Peabody faced his fear of the dark to retrieve his grandma Gigi's cell phone and summon help. 1 concussion and 22 staples later, he is her little hero.
I know, but when I grew up like a big kid, I can help Gigi.
You see him? He's just a blessing.
Counting blessings in Colorado. And that's the world that we live in for Friday, the 14th of March. I'm Sarah Harnish, and this is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.